makes. Today we're going to be making hippie keychains with shrinky dinks. And if you guys got a kit, I wanted to let you know that inside the kit you've got shrink plastic, a stencil, some beads, some cord, a keychain, and a double-ended pencil that looks like this. What I only gave one per household on is a Sharpie. Sharpies are kind of expensive, and so what I did when I noticed if someone was registered was I saw all the different people who had the same phone number. You guys are one household, so you guys only get one Sharpie. Sorry about that. It's just to save myself a little bit of money. But anyway, let's just jump right in and start getting started. So you have in your kit a piece of shrink plastic. Looks a lot like this, and there's a hole punched in it. And so we're just going to use that to trace, and the Sharpie to trace our daisy peace sign. So we'll put the shrink plastic over it and then just trace it with a Sharpie. It does not have to be super duper accurate, because remember, this is going to shrink, and it is going to shrink a lot. So we don't want to put a lot of detail on our shrinky dink here, just because it's not worth it. It's going to shrink up and you're not going to see it anyway. So there's no point in going bonkers. This is what you'll use the Sharpie for. So everybody should share their family Sharpie, or if you have a Sharpie at home, that's awesome, and just use yours. It probably works a little bit better if you have the wider tip Sharpie, but this is what I happen to have in stock here at the library today, so that's what we're using. And then once we're done tracing our flower here, so when I take it off, ta-da, nicely traced. And so we're going to color it. And what we're going to do is we're going to have to rough up one of the surfaces to get your Sharpie color, your shrink plastic colored with a colored pencil. Some shrink plastic that you can buy in the store has a rough side and a smooth side, and then you can use a colored pencil on it. But this particular shrink plastic, I didn't notice when I purchased it, is smooth on both sides. That's not awesome. The colored pencil doesn't stick to something that's that smooth. It's only really for permanent marker. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to rough up one side of it. And what I'm going to use to rough it up is just like the scrubby end of a kitchen sponge. You can use sandpaper. You can even just kind of use a rough rock, but the scrubby edge of a kitchen sponge is going to work real well. It just needs to be dry. So that sound is not pleasant. Not even a little bit. But rough it up nice and good. And it will be not shiny. On that side, you can see there, now I have a side that's not shiny, that side that is shiny. So that should allow us to just get in there and be able to color our shrinky dink. Just so. And we will get that going. I used to make shrinky dinks all the time when I was a little girl. My mom liked to do them, so I made quite a lot of shrinky dink Christmas ornaments and things like that. Now as an adult, when I look at shrinky dinks and I think about what I want to do with them, I think that they have a really cool application for making jewelry. You can make earrings and stuff out of basically anything you want. Just lay your clear plastic down on top of it and trace it, and then you can color it and make sure you have that hole punched in it, and you can go from there. I really like it. I've made myself some sugar skull earrings with shrink plastic, a couple of different little pendants with it. I think it's fun, and maybe someday I'll have to have a class on doing shrink plastic jewelry because I think it's, you know, almost a good kind of beginner into jewelry making. We'll see. We'll see what 2021 holds. As you can see, as we've roughed up that side, it really does work well to put the color from the colored pencils. If you wanted to color it and make it a little bit brighter, you could of course use colored Sharpies if you happen to have access to those. But don't use crayon, because crayon is just straight up wax, and because you have to melt a shrinky dink to let it shrink, a crayon is just, it's not a good idea. They'll pretty much just melt and run off of the plastic no matter how rough you make it. And watercolor, or like water-based, not watercolor, but water-based markers are not amazing for it either. Just not so good because it won't stick to the plastic no matter how much you rough it up. It'll bead and pool and just kind of go swimming all over the place, and you won't have good even color when you put it into the oven to shrink it. When I shrink these at the library, I usually use a heat gun instead of an oven. And the reason for that is that I'm usually doing them with a bunch of different kids, and we need to get them shrunk real quick and in a hurry. And the heat gun just allows me to really put focused heat out on whatever I'm looking at. And, you know, a heat gun just basically is an incredibly super powerful hairdryer. It pumps out really, really, really hot air from a heating element. And they're great if you happen to have your hands on one. That's not a very typical crafting tool that I think people have in their arsenal, though. So that's why we're doing a oven today. So there we go. I have my flour all ready. And I've lost my scissors. If anybody knows me at all, they know I'm always losing my scissors. Let's see here. You don't have to have fantastic scissors to cut this out, so I'm hoping that the little scissors I have on my desk are going to work. Here's another trick about shrink plastic. You don't need to get super duper exact with cutting. Actually, I just cut this piece off. You don't need to get super exact about cutting the shape out perfectly. In fact, I encourage you to not do that. The reason for that being is that, again, it's going to shrink way up. And nobody's going to notice if you cut exactly along the lines. And it is really brittle plastic. And you'll just find yourself getting really frustrated trying to get it to cut out perfectly when there's just very little way that it's going to cut out perfectly, no matter what you do about it. Sometimes when I make them, I got a little close for comfort. Sometimes when I make them, I actually just make them on a rectangle, and I'll punch a hole in the rectangle and then just make my design. And I know it'll shrink up as a rectangle, but I know one side's going to be nice and the edges are going to be nice and clear, right? So I'm not super worried about a rectangle there. But this one, I think we want to kind of have it look like a flower, so I'm cutting it so that it is a flower. And you'll notice it is really brittle. Sometimes it's like ripping into the actual art itself, and that's unfortunate, but just kind of a part of it. But the nice thing is that it is really forgiving. That's why I like doing shrink plastic with maybe kids that seem like they're a little small for something that is going to get this hot. And it's because no matter what, and it's going to shrink up and look super duper cool. Like you really colored everything in, even if maybe you didn't. And just really, it's like magic. So I have my hole kind of real close to the edge here. Yours are a bit further down. I'm going to actually leave kind of like a little stem, I guess, on my shrink plastic. You do not have to do that. Just make sure that you leave it in a place where it is accessible, because that is how you're going to get it on your keychain. All right, mine's all cut out. So here we go. We are ready to put it into the oven and get it to start shrinking. Hooray! going to reach behind you guys to the oven, and then as soon as I get everything out of it, get started, I will move the camera and you guys can watch with me. See the shrinky dink shrink up. That just kind of right in here. You're going to want to do this on a tray. Oh, it's already going. No. Not for me, shrinky dinker. That's one tricksy bit. Just trying to get it to go on my desk here so I can show you what I'm working on without burning the crap out of myself. Which, if you've ever watched any of my programs before, you know I'm definitely afraid of doing. It's already starting, so we want to be able to watch it. Alrighty. Moving the camera. So if you watch here, there it goes. And the thing with shrink plastic is that it's gonna really curl up on itself at first before it shrinks down. And can you see that going? So I have my little toaster oven here on my desk set at 350 degrees. There. And that seems to be a pretty good heat to get your shrink plastic done really quickly. If you're concerned about it melting or something, then put your oven on 275. I think that's their recommended one. But if you'll notice, when I did it, you saw that it curled up first and then it flattened out, and that's exactly what we want it to do. So that's about as shrunk, I think, as it's going to get. And so I'm going to go ahead and put my phone back and get it out. Hold on one second. Let's hope I don't knock my phone over, because that would be perfect and very like me. So here we go. They're very, very hot. And they will stay that way for a minute. Back in the oven. Let me see. Stop and turn it off. And so here is my finished Shrinky Dink charm. Pretty neato, right? Looks pretty good. Might not have thought it was going to turn out that nice, but it certainly did. I really like how that turned out, actually. And so we're going to just really, really super quickly make a beaded keychain to go with it. And in your kit, you've got a bunch of cord. You're just going to thread that fella right on through there. And then you've got some beads. And I cut that cord way super long, but whatever. And then you've got some cool beads. So what I'm going to do is knot the bottom of this here. So it has a knot just kind of right there. And then I'm going to get one of my beads. I'm going to do a yellow one. Yellow bead. And then I'm going to attempt, this is going to be the tricks bit, to put both ends of this cord through the hole in that bead. It may not work. We're going to give it our best shot anyway. If not, just do one. I think I'm going to just do one because I don't think it's going to go. But here we go. Here's one. And then you just loop your thread around and give it another tie. And I gave you enough to put 2 beads on your keychain. So there's one. And I'm going to pick out, oh, that one has a funky hole. If yours have a funky hole, stick like a toothpick or even just the end of your pencil through your little funky hole And it's probably just the paint that'll fix it up. So I had to go like that to make sure the hole was open. Sometimes that happens with wooden beads. All right, now stick your thread through, maybe again, maybe yes. Oh, wooden beads. Make me crazy. That bead just does not want to be helpful. So I'm going to get a bigger one. If you have a funky bead, I am truly sorry. I can't always tell whether or not they're going to make it. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten bead crafts from me before, but that does seem to happen to me relatively regularly. Maybe I'm buying the wrong beads. Try to match up those threads here like that. Okay. There we go. 2 beads on my keychain. And last but not least, you're just gonna give that good old keychain one of the rings that you have in your kit. And at this point, what I recommend doing is just making another, basically just tying it on. If you've got it at home, put a bit of nail polish on your knots, like clear nail polish, and that will make it so that they don't fray when you cut it off. Anyway, there we go. One nice shrinky-dink beaded keychain in the style of our 1960s and 70s hippies. That's our program for today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next month. Until I get to see you again in person, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep making. Have a great day.